Welcome to Something from Nada, the only podcast designed to explore entrepreneurial stories of determination, focusing on first-generation immigrants and underserved leaders. In each episode, we'll introduce you to the unlikely changemakers, shattering intergenerational cycles as they defy the odds to build something amazing from nothing. My name is Nada Ahmed, and I'm your host. They say you shouldn't mix business and politics. However, in today's landscape, once you decide to become a leader, all matters of the heart, mind, and soul must be navigated. When we last spoke with Donna, CEO of a well-established chemical supplier, Cole Chemicals, we learned about her humble beginnings and the challenges of being a woman in oil and energy. In round 2, we'll dive deeper into what makes you influential, how entrepreneurial wisdom helps navigate pressing challenges of our time, things like climate change and increased global conflict. Join me as we ask tough questions and settle into candid wisdom. Let's dive in. Hi, Donna.
Hi.
Welcome back.
Thank you for having me.
We had a little glitch last time towards the end of our episode, so we had to cut off a little bit abruptly, but I was lucky enough to get you on again for a second episode because, I was listening to the one we had a few weeks ago, and already I felt like it was such a good conversation, but there was so much more I would like to get in with you.
All right, let's go.
Yeah, let's go. So I was thinking, you've had a pretty long career being an entrepreneur, 44 years, you said. And I was wondering, as you reflect back, are you able to identify like certain phases in your career, like early on, mid-career? Like how would you describe how that journey has been? And then perhaps talk to us about what do you think is coming up for you and how do you see the next couple of years for you?
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
As you start your business, you're into the business, doing everything and anything you possibly can to make it work, right? And you're also trying to find people who can help you where you need help. You have to determine when is it a time to add new people and who do you add and where. So that was one. And I think sometimes if you work with customers and suppliers, for me, it was so much easier than dealing with employees. That was really hard for me and maybe for a lot of other entrepreneurs and business people because you have to put the right people in the right slots. And you're hiring people to get some work done, to parlay stuff that you were doing that isn't maybe in sales. So my particular area of expertise was really marketing and sales, right? Getting new business, getting customers, and then the supplier relationships. Because as a distributor, we need both, right? And you don't want a lot of inventory. So I tended to buy product first and then sell it. Okay. So I find out what your need is, then I go buy it, and then I can sell it to you. So that was one way to keep inventory costs down. And I think part of those areas of growth is when is it time to start borrowing money? When is it time to use somebody else's money to grow your business, right? Because you want to be able to hire people to train them so that as you're ramping up, they're trained to be able to do the business, right? And then you can grow to some capacity and then keep doing that. And then I think the other is determining where do you grow? You grow in product line? Do you take one product and try and sell it as much as possible? Or do you let your customers drive you with what products they need? And so now you're into other areas, products or services that you didn't start in, or even your suppliers. Maybe your supplier likes you and likes what you're doing and says, hey, I got this new product, right? Or can you sell this service, et cetera? But the other part is knowing about trends and being aware of what's happening that is going to affect your business, right? And then asking your customers, gee, what's affecting you? And how are you managing that so that I can think about it and say, oh, then if they're thinking about this, my customer's thinking about this, then I too better start thinking about it, right? And so we've seen all those through the years and also the ups and downs of the economy, right? And so what pieces of business that I have, that one is up and one's down, right? so that we're not totally hurt. But so the caveat to that is COVID,
Yeah.
right?
Everything is down.
Oh my God, that was terrible, terrible.
Yeah. So it's like diversifying your portfolio as you are growing. So in the beginning, you're just like trying to make it work, execute, get the bricks together so that you can actually have a business. And then you can think a bit more strategically. Okay, am I going to grow? Which area am I going to grow? Does it make sense for me to grow now? Borrowing money, all of that stuff.
Right.
And then, like you're saying, diversifying so that if the oil and gas industry is going down, maybe there's another industry that's going to go up that you need to also be in business with.
Sure. And I think what really helped me too was like some of these business executive programs at these universities are very helpful, right? Because it gives you a chance for 3 days or a week to get away from your business so you can work on the business instead of inside the business. Right. And I think probably for me is I was just so willing to learn and change and come back and start a new strategy. And my employees were probably wondering, what is this crazy woman doing? So at one point in time, I took all our managers on a strategic retreat with these professors. And then we sat there 2 days afterwards to go through our strategic plan. And so now I don't have to come back and convince people. They're the ones implementing.
Right. And that's empowering people and, realizing that time is really an investment. That time and, perhaps the money that you spend on training and, getting this 3-day retreat done is empowering them so that you can grow in the right way.
Oh, yeah.
And then you're not the only one who has to be thinking all the time about making the right decision because your employees are doing that.
Yeah. And human effectiveness training for me was always a big deal because it's something that you can use at home personally to grow in community, in your family. So we did lots and lots of different trainings.
And then those kind of trainings, I feel like you can use in so many different ways, even outside your business, right? Because a lot of these leadership training is also helping you think in a different way, helping you plan, helping you build relationships and things like that.
And also to know people's thinking styles and differences, right? And that you need to have a whole brain in a team. You can't all be creatives and nobody who's a let's get it done or a visionary or an analytical person. You have to have all of those on a team.
Exactly. And one of the things that, I don't know if we touched in a lot of detail about last time, but we had lunch over was going over the Strength Finder from Gallup that you talk about as something that you make all your employees do, the Strength Finder exam. And if people listening want to go, it's Gallup, Strength Finder, and find out more about yourself. And as an entrepreneur, find out what your strengths are of the people working with you and make sure that they're not all the same like yourself.
Right. And you shouldn't be hiring people just like you. You should be hiring people who are different from you. You had asked me earlier, what's the perfect employee? And you said, okay, there's not really a perfect employee, but somebody who has lots of great talent that you appreciate, right? And so I thought about that and I thought, oh, who would that be? So our IT manager is so completely different than me that I respected him so much. He was a good listener. He was great about taking the information about like how I wanted a program to work or the end result and telling me why it would work or wouldn't work. And then what's the parameters within it that I could live with. And I appreciated that. And it wasn't that I was always right at all. And so that's good because you don't always want people who always think you're right and doing everything that you ask them to do without questioning. Is that really what you want? And here's the consequences. Or here's what it's going to cost, or here's what you have to give up to get that.
Yeah, because running a company is a team. It's a team effort. So you need someone who's an IT expert. You need someone who's good at legal, at finance, checkbooks, and all of that stuff. Yeah, and it can't always be you.
That's right. It can't always
who
be
knows me. All the answer is an expert on everything.
And I think that's the other thing is to be able to go to other people and say, I want to learn from you. I've heard that you're an expert in this area and I need help in this area. And people want to help other people.
Yeah. So how are you now thinking about where you are today with your company as still the CEO today and where it might go in the next 5 years.
Yeah. Last year, I actually sold a 40% interest in my company.
Mm-hmm.
And so now I have some other people that I'm working with. We've outsourced a lot of the job functions at the company, so I can work more on the strategy and growth, more PR marketing,
Mm-hmm.
and then let other people do all the other work that needs to be done.
Mm-hmm.
And gives me a chance also to be more involved in community work, right? How do we make sure that we've got great education system for the future workforce?
Mm-hmm.
Because that's so important. Where are we with AI and cybersecurity, risk management? Those things are things that I want to work on.
Mm-hmm.
And how can we make Houston better? How can we make this country better, the world better? So I now have my tentacles in a lot of things going on right now, working on Beyond Zero. How do we help with climate change and improve the environment? Ray Anderson from Interface, he has this Beyond Zero documentary out, and I'm helping to promote it. But what he said was, if we accidentally created climate change and hurting the environment, imagine if we all worked together intentionally to fix it.
That is so powerful.
Right? We could do it so much faster. If it took us 50 years to get here, what could we do in less?
Yeah. What do you think is the fundamental shift in thinking that's needed for us to seriously tackle climate change?
I think people need to realize that there has to be a balance between profitability and climate change in the future. Because we have to start working on this. And we can all do it at home, starting at home. Then we can do it in our businesses. But then it takes everybody in an organization and their customers and suppliers to help find those areas where we're being wasteful. Or how can we make some critical changes and be curious about it?
Yeah.
Open.
How do you think it fits in with your business owner, in with the way capitalism works, right? And someone said to me, it's because we're not maybe applying capitalism in the right way. Because you can either poke holes in capitalism itself, or you could say maybe we're not doing it right way because we are not taking into account all the cost of producing this oil, for example.
That's right.
Because the cost of producing this oil also includes abandoning the well properly, like disposing of the waste properly. But often those costs are not really included in our business models.
Or we're looking at the wrong things. We're focusing on, and I'll give you for an example about plastic resins, right? So legislation wants to tax plastic manufacturers because of the bottles in the ocean and what it does to the animals in the fish, and how we get microorganism plastics in our own body from eating fish. And they want to tax them, but here's what the thing is. Don't tax the manufacturers, because that's all of us. And if you want to get bottles out of the ocean, then put a deposit on the bottle so that you take it back and you get money back. But now there's bottles to be recycled, reclaimed, something else done with them, right? And they do get collected. But if you tax the manufacturers of plastic resins, you don't know as a legislator what kind of resins they make. Is it high density, low density? Is it polypropylene, polyethylene? Is it blow molding grade? Making bottles? Or is it making my plasma bag that I need? Or is it making that syringe?
Yeah, because it's not addressing the problem.
Right.
It's like you're addressing one of the things that's perhaps maybe the symptom, right, of the world that we live in. And what you were saying, like having a deposit on the bottle, I lived in Norway for a decade, and that's how it is. Every bottle you buy, you get like 10 kroner back from it. So everyone recycles their bottles. And if people throw them in the trash, they're like people going around and picking those up because then they can get money from returning them. And they're like, it's like decent 10 kroners. This means that maybe your plastic bottle costs a little bit more. Right. But the problem is, though, as in Norway, we were thinking about this, that sure, that we collect and recycle it, which is way better than throwing in the trash. And then that plastic is collected separately. It's already sorted out from your trash. But at the same time, you have to also look at it from a life cycle perspective, because often that plastic is then sent to Asia, like sent to China. And then what happened over the past couple of years is China didn't have really the capacity to recycle. And in some of these countries, they just threw it in the ocean. And can't also just send our trash to developing countries. So we have to really think about it in a very holistic mindset and build that capacity to recycle and sort out our trash here in-house, and not always try to make profit on everything, like every margin. Because at some point I'm just like, how much growth will be enough?
Well, when you say how much growth is enough, it's like how much profit is enough.
How much profit is enough?
How much is enough personally?
Personally.
How many houses do you have to have? How many boats? How many cars? How many trips, etc.? Is there a point in time where we will realize that you have an abundance?
Yeah. We live in abundance.
And let's start blessing other people.
Right.
And that, so I don't know how we get to that point.
Yeah.
But certainly we have a far end of those with an abundance and those who have nothing.
Scarcity. And that's the problem, right? Because someone was saying, there was a campaign event and someone came and they were like, oh, this all was fields before. Look at it now. Because there were houses and commercial centers. And they're like, this is economic development. And the crowd was cheering. And I was like uneasy with it. Because I'm like, these was all prairies and grasslands like that we built our like big suburban houses over. And I don't know if we should necessarily be cheering for the loss of these like habitat for our wildlife and stuff.
Right.
And we also need to respect that. And so, and I was like, we're calling it economic development, but it's not really, because our middle class is shrinking. Poverty rates have not decreased in the US over the past 5 decades, right? So who is actually profiting? It's the same people. And it's often big corporations too. Yeah. But we really don't understand. We call it economic development, but are we really helping people who need the most help in this country?
Right. And when is it enough? And you have all of these buildings across the world, not just US,
not
right?
Just the US,
that are being emptied.
Yeah.
Because now after COVID, people are working from home.
Mm.
And are we going to repurpose those into public housing? What can we do? And somebody said, a lot of buildings we can't. We'll have to destroy them because they have asbestos in them.
Yeah. Oh. Mm.
Yeah. As you start problem solving and critical thinking, we have to find out systemically, what can we do? And then after that, how do we break it down to make it positive?
What makes me optimistic, though, is I think there is definitely a generational change in mindset. And I don't know if you've noticed that, but I notice it. I'm a millennial, and I notice it in my other podcast where I interview other millennials talking about their energy tech startup. And we ask them what's their climate story, like why do they care about this so much? Right. And almost for all of them, for many of them, it's like, you know, when I was in 5th grade, they taught me in school that I should pick up my trash and I should take care of my environment. And I was like, yeah, I should do that, you know, and it just kind of was embedded in our psychology.
Right.
So I think back to what you were saying about our school systems and how we're educating people and creating responsible citizens.
Yeah, holding that expectation and accountability is so important.
Yeah.
And so millennials, right? Talking about clothes.
Yeah.
Right? And all of these, the clothes that are all over the place, that we don't need more new clothes, right?
No, exactly. For this year, my goal is not to buy any new clothes and just be fine with what I have. And, you know, all this fast fashion. And what I'm learning is that they're available. Clothes today are way cheaper than they used to be for like generations before us. And it's because we exploit it from other countries where we give them really bare minimum wages to these women from Bangladesh, from Pakistan, from Vietnam. And I think globalization has been good in many aspects, but we also have to look at, what is the impact on the environment for all of this stuff, right?
Yeah. We've exploited a lot of people.
Yeah.
And animals and the earth. And we're going to have to come back and find some balance someplace.
Yeah. And we need to. And so my hope is that with the new generation, like there's not going to be this debate that, oh, it's not man-made. And because for me, it doesn't matter if it's man-made or not. This is the only home we have. And I don't want to go live in Mars, no matter what Elon Musk discovers there.
Yeah, and the other fear, too, is AI.
Yeah.
And these drones. And there's warring going on in this whole world.
Yes, yeah.
And it's just not as publicized as Russia and Ukraine.
Yeah. Yes.
So you have all these little countries and tribes that are fighting each other. So now with AI and these drones, for a nominal amount of money, you can annihilate your neighbors.
Yes, yes.
So then what does that mean? So does that mean all of a sudden in a year span, the population will be decreased? Yeah. And that's going to be the helpful thing? I don't know.
No, and you're right, because for me,
strange.
It's like I worry about climate change, but then I also worry about war a lot, because as much as we are advancing in our technology, we're also creating technology for our mass destruction. Our war technologies and weapons that we're using are pretty advanced too today.
Yeah.
And the other day I was reading that we've already thrown 72,000 tons of bombs on Gaza. That's equivalent to 4 Hiroshima bombs.
Wow. That's awful. And it's incredible.
It's incredible, right? And it's awful, obviously, because they're mostly children that are dying there. And which is why I think this war has really scared me.
And it's on TV.
Yeah, it's on TV. It's being live streamed. And we can't stop it. And the thing with this new warfare is that you're not necessarily battling an army in a way. It's all like drones and stuff. It's not like people going there and fighting with swords. It's like drones and AI, and it's all automated and targeted. But still, in a place like Gaza right now, it's mostly children that are dying, which is heartbreaking. So just for our humanity, I feel like we need to take this seriously, because I feel like if it can happen there, it can happen
anywhere. And it's a political tennis match.
Yeah, we have to move past this who wins, who loses, who lost more, who's suffering more. And just, I know it sounds wishy-washy to just sit here and say we need to just come together, because of course these are things that have been going on for decades. But at the end of the day, it's like, how can we save the most amount of lives?
Yeah, that's what we should be looking at. And part of that is, can we quantify and qualify the people? You want good people. I don't care who they are.
Yeah.
How do we find the good people?
Yeah. And like someone said, you can't really put a value to human life. And ethically, we can't lose that sense that we will go there and annihilate people because we think there might be resources there that we can use. And of course, talking about Palestine is a little bit controversial, but you can look at what's happening in Congo, which, because of what's happening in Palestine, I'm getting quite educated about, like, where do all the minerals and metals that we use in our phone come from? Places like Congo. And there's like massive ethnic cleansing going on there so that people can build these mines and extract cobalt.
Yeah.
So anyway, this podcast is going down a very depressing.
Maybe we can find people out there who are willing to solve it.
I think it's important to talk about it. I think it's important to talk about these as we try to address them too. Because who else was, they were talking about like even solar panels, and the metals that they use in these solar panels come from these places. So just because we're thinking, okay, we're not going to use fossil fuel and we're going to switch to something greener, we're creating another problem.
Exactly.
So in terms of the mindset, I think it's really looking at things from the whole life cycle perspective.
It is. Right? I mean, people are talking about, how bad oil and gas is, et cetera. But we wouldn't have all of this stuff without oil and gas, without petroleum products, chemicals, right? Yeah. And then people, chemicals are bad. And I have to, water is H2O. That's a chemical. Yeah. And we need chemicals for medicine and chemicals to treat the sewer system, et cetera. So it's going back to the plastics. They're looking at throwing the baby out with the bathwater.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree. It's like looking at the nuances, right? And sometimes you use these blanket statements,
Yeah.
and it's not necessarily very effective.
But also the industry's done a very poor job, right?
Yeah.
Even the chemical industry,
Mm.
right? There used to be some ads on uncommon chemistry.
Yeah.
And what does that industry do for people? And I think if more people knew about it, they go, oh, I can't live without a car. I can't live without my computer, my cell phone, my furniture, my house. And all of that is made from chemicals and
That's true.
petrochemicals.
And what do you think on that topic is the responsibility of industries, right? In terms of climate responsibility, but also in terms of like when we have big events going on in the world, like the wars.
Or
like
even the rail cars
Yeah.
that the train went off the track,
Yes,
right? And then
exactly.
all those
Yeah.
chemicals spilled, and they're blaming the railroad company. And accidents happen.
You're right.
You can go for how long without an accident. And then when it happens, it's so devastating. And then people just want to clamp down on it and stop.
Yes. Yeah.
But when you do that, then you add extra costs
Mm-hmm.
for trucks instead of rail cars because of the volume, sheer volume that they can move. But is there a safer way? I don't think so. Right? It's just that maybe more attention to the tracks and the maintenance could have been done, but that's it. Right? And is that the railroad's responsibility? Is it Department of Transportation? Because they're under the Department of Transportation. And people are always wanting to blame somebody.
But can we all take a little bit of responsibility? Can we? Can we? Because it's society at the end of the day.
Yeah. Even the airline industry, people are upset because of these planes that are crashing and things that are happening. But it's one of the safest ways of transportation.
That's true.
So we ignore the fact that millions and millions of people take airplanes every day.
Yeah. So maybe moving on to, you spoke about earlier about there's a way of building relationships with your customers, which we can be very good at because I feel like if you're a relationship person, if you're like a salesperson, if that's one of your strengths, then you would be pretty good at that, right? Because it's really about pleasing them and saying whatever you have to say because they're the customer, right? So you want to please them. They're the one paying your bills. But then the relationship with your employees is different because you have to also get them to do the work. You also have to empower them. It's a very different type of relationship building. So perhaps you could talk to us about the challenges there that you've had and what you've learned. And if you have any examples of like maybe a testy relationship that you had, what you learned from it, how do you mend it? How do you get it to work?
Yeah. So I've had good relationships and not so good relationships, and especially in handling them. I think as you go through life, you learn more, right? At one point in time, I remember telling an employee, she said, I don't need to learn anymore. I don't need to go to any more classes. And my snapback, and I shouldn't have them, my snapback was, if you don't want to learn anymore, then you don't have a place here, right? Because I need people who are willing to learn and listen and grow, right? So I think it's all in how you handle evaluations and appraisals and expectations, right? But it's trust. There's a deep amount of trust between certain employees and others that don't have that. So I may walk up to somebody in accounting and ask them to do a report for me. And sometimes I got an answer back like, what do you not want me to do? I was like, what? Yeah, if you want me to do this, what do you not want me to do in my everyday job?
Oh, yeah.
So that's quite a shock
Yeah.
to get that response back. Or then there's somebody who will write down everything that they do every day. So it takes half the day to write down what they did. And the reason for that was whenever you come back and ask, what are you doing? They have this.
They have the list.
But it's every day.
Yeah.
It's like, how can you spend all that time? And then I realized they're working late. Why are you working late?
Yeah.
Part of it was to write down what they did all day. But the other part really was they didn't want to get in the middle of traffic.
Oh, yeah. So, so they were leaving for another reason. They were leaving late for another reason. And that means often if I knew that I was going to stay till 7 p.m., I would procrastinate. Because I was like, well, I've got until 7 to finish this.
Right.
But if I knew I have to leave at 4, I like hurry up and get it done.
Sure. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
It's tough because you really do have to learn not just about yourself on the Strength Finder, but your employees and your team members, right? What makes them tick and what are their strengths that you need to give them more of that to do because they're going to excel and do well in, rather than giving them something that's drudgery and you push it to the back and you have all these other things that come up that you can do faster, better. Yeah. We tweak job descriptions for people.
Good.
Right?
Yeah.
We put people in different departments. Yeah. And so I think those are the things that you can manage people well, and that's what you need to do.
Yeah. I was thinking about what you said when you asked this person to give you an accounting report. Because I think I was talking to one of the coaches I had once, and one of the things that we discussed, okay, you have too much on your plate, or I don't know if I read it somewhere, and they said, then you need to also go back to your boss and say, I have all these things that I'm doing. What do you want me to prioritize? So I guess maybe the way this person responded, maybe she read this advice somewhere that she has to ask, but like the way she responded was very abrupt and rude, right? What do you want me not to do? As if it sounds almost like she's saying, you want me to do everything? I can't do everything, right?
Yeah.
So there's something a little bit with the attitude versus sitting down with you and say, yes, I can prioritize that, but is it okay if I can send you this other report later? Yeah. So there's a way of communicating.
But I think that's the gem about learning about people is that person was very regimented. So like every day they had tasks to do by X time and they were checking the box. I don't check a box. I might have some kind of list, but if something comes across my desk or a phone call or an email that I have to address, I have to be adaptive and be flexible. Yeah. And so that's what I do. Yeah. And I don't complain about it. I just do it.
But that's against your personality, right? Yeah. That's your personality, being agile, being able to do things where there are other people, like my husband works in IT and he's like, our coders love working from home because they don't get disturbed all the time. Like they have to go in there and just do their stuff. And then there's some people, like you said, who are just very regimented. They like, okay, this is what I'm going to do. And they cannot handle unpredictability. Right. So when you come and throw in something, it just is like, they have to think about it. So how do you then as a leader, like manage that?
Right. So it's all about how you approach them, right? In terms of, I need to have this report, but I don't need it until blah, right? Not coming in and saying, I need this report because they don't know when you need it. Is it now? I have to drop everything? Or I have until Friday. And, the same thing when a customer says, well, get back to me next week. What is next week? Is that Monday, Wednesday, or Friday?
Yeah, no, so I think that's interesting that we also have to respect other people's way of working.
Absolutely.
In some way, because that is their optimum way of working. And if we go there and they're always disrupting them, everyone is different, realizing that.
It's frustrating for them, right?
Yeah.
It's that platinum rule. It's treating somebody the way they want to be treated, not the golden rule, how you want to be treated. So it's the same thing with communication styles.
Yeah. Also, you were a woman entrepreneur in the 1980s when there were probably not many other women. What do you think was maybe different for you on your journey being a woman, and what kind of advice, not even advice, like what do you think maybe for women who want to be entrepreneurs and succeed, what do we need to do?
Yeah, sure, today, because things have changed, right? In some ways, in other ways they haven't. It's still, I hate to say this, it's still a man's world, right? And I think women, when you're starting out, there's this bias that they're not as smart or that they don't have the connections. And I think what women have to do today is still show that you have experience or you have the technology, you have the education. And I think it's more about how do you toot your horn without blowing it, right? There's that book. I think it's very helpful for women. and we have to do more of that. We have to do more networking. A friend of mine said, there's not a glass ceiling for women. It's just a thick layer of men. and you have to have men as allies.
And not everyone is there
mentors,
trying to drag you down.
and to be able to know what your strengths are and build on them. Know right away who is an ally, who is on your side, and who's going to help you grow, and who isn't. And you got to let them go to be able to keep moving on. Because it's hard enough to start your own business rather than having people who are getting in your way or stealing your information, et cetera. But I think there's so many more opportunities for women these days. And in terms of work ethic and multitasking, et cetera, I think women are far ahead of most men in that area.
Yeah, and I hear women in these very technical roles, and they're smart and as qualified as the men out there. And sometimes, exactly to what you're saying, we are not used to tooting our own horn because we are conditioned that when you do that, people don't like you. Because growing up in high school and things like that, like if you are the one who's doing really well, you get these signals, right? Oh, you got to be humble. You got to be humble. And we confuse being humble with also being confident in our abilities and what we're able to do. And when I coach women, I also tell them, like, people don't know your background. So you can't come in a meeting and expect like they will know that you have all these qualifications and everything that you know. So you have to talk about it to build that credibility. I wish we didn't have to do that. This is how you tell the other person why I'm in the room and why I'm qualified to have this discussion with you and make these decisions with you.
I think that's why it's so important to keep practicing your introduction of who you are, because you only get one shot.
That's true, because you can't go back after a few meetings and say, let me introduce myself again.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
And at that point in time, you have to be able to find a way to let people know who you are and your story, right? Is there something in your story that people can empathize with and get them on your side and want to listen and learn from you?
And then also talking about intersectionality a little bit, because you also are third generation immigrant, Japanese. Do you think that also played a role in maybe how people saw you or your interactions? Or do you see yourself like pretty assimilated in the culture, that people don't see the difference? You talk like everybody else.
No, I go back and forth depending on who I'm talking to, where I am. I can feel the bias or I can feel the camaraderie or the allyship. And so I think for me, in a lot of cases, I'm quiet at first just to listen and just to feel that gut feel. And I think so many people try and not listen to their gut, and they really need to.
Yeah, because you sometimes get a sense of people, right? You'll be sitting with them and you realize they're not making eye contact with you, or something is off. And you can feel it in the body language. Yeah. I was at an event the other day, and someone was talking about in Texas, the big issue is like the border wall, and we don't want immigrants coming here. And I was not trying to, there's no point arguing with someone like that, but I was more trying to say, yeah, but at the same time, we need labor, right? Like we need people in this country. And he said, I don't mind people coming here, but I don't want them to bring their culture.
Wow.
And I was just like, okay, does this person see like me? We all came here at some point, and we all brought our different cultures. And that's the whole thing about, and why is culture so scary? So something about maybe the society that's become so polarized today, I feel like maybe even a few decades ago, someone wouldn't have said that. But I think this is the part of the polarization that's maybe happened in America, where we, instead of appreciating different cultures, we find them a bit threatening.
Yeah. Unfortunately, we've lost all our etiquette and ability to empathize. And, because there is a whitening of America that has happened. And now we're feeling it and we're hearing it more openly than we had before. So was it always there and it was just had a little cap on it and now it's been released? So people could say it's because of all that's happening in the political world or social media, etc., or COVID, right?
Yeah. But it's also because our leaders are talking in that same language, right? That encourages people to be like, okay, I guess it's okay to say that. Which is why it's so important that we as leaders are careful about what we say and the language that we use. And that also we use our voice.
Yeah.
That we use our voice. And I think you spoke about that last time, about the importance of the leaders who are people, perhaps people of color with different backgrounds, to not only be those role models for other people who are looking up to you, who are maybe not white male, or even white females, I feel like have way more privilege than people of color. But then also building a society where we are truly inclusive. Because as a Japanese American, I don't want you to lose your language or your food, because there's richness in that.
Yes, I think so too.
Yeah.
But, yeah, so we weren't taught Japanese. Yeah. The language, some food, some cultural things, dance, etc., origami. But it was because parents wanted you to assimilate and be American, whatever that is. But at that expense, we realized later that, oh my gosh, we missed out on so much because of the hatred, because of the discrimination. Yeah. They wanted to protect their children, and the only way they could do that is to say, go try and be like an American.
Yeah. Did you feel like there was a moment for you when you realized, you know what, I need to embrace my culture more, I've let it go, to fit in?
Yeah.
Do you remember?
I had Judge Hannah Chow tell me that.
Yeah.
She said, you have assimilated too much. She said, you've forgotten your roots. Yeah. And so she recommended that I go to an Asian women's leadership program. And I did. And I really enjoyed it. And I did realize that, I was trying to go out there and be a white male in business, right? And I'm not. Yeah. I remember I had a meeting with some guy and he kept, I kept calling on the phone to say, hey, I'm out here. He said, I came out there and I didn't see you. I'm like, yeah, I'm here. What I didn't realize later was Donna Cole, he was looking for a black woman, not a Japanese American woman, right? And so it just dawned on me as, wow.
Yeah. These associations we have, yeah. Interesting, yeah. No, because I feel like for me also, to fit in here, I was even embarrassed to speak Urdu with my kids in public. And now I'm realizing, I'm like, where's that conditioning like coming from? And perhaps for me, being from Pakistan, it's like my colonial mindset too, where English was always better to speak than your local language. But I'm like checking myself on that and saying, no, because this is something I can pass on to my kids and it's nothing to be embarrassed about. And yes, there might be some people who are more vocal about saying things like that today, but that's not the American ideal that we're all striving for, because our America is inclusive. And last time you said hashtag we're all Americans.
We are.
Yeah. And this is what makes America so rich, so diverse, but also so successful in many ways. But of course, there are parts that we can always fix and be better at. Yeah.
Absolutely. And we're going to do it.
We're going to do it. Yeah.
I might not be around, but your children will.
Exactly. My children and their children. And so it's also, when we're thinking about addressing these challenges, the way you're working now with a lot of like community service and like how you're giving back, because it's not really for immediate result, right? You're planting the seed for the future generation. So maybe if you want to talk about some of the things that you're working within the community, the impact that you want to make, and how you're passionate about some of these things.
Yeah, I think one of them is the National Asian and Asian Pacific American Museum in Washington, D.C. Biden signed an executive order for a commission, a board to be developed for us to develop the feasibility study on why we should have an Asian and Asian Pacific American Museum in Washington, D.C.
Wow.
And we have brought a lot to the table in America. And America has done a lot of bad things to various different ethnicities in the Asian and Asian American Pacific community, right? I'm working on that.
Okay.
Nationally, trying to get some grassroots. I also want stories. I want money because Congress gave us zero budget.
Wow.
So we have to raise money to hire people for the architectural design. What was the purpose? Why should they be interested in an Asian and Asian Pacific American museum? Right. And then we have to petition to have it on the Washington Mall with the rest of them.
Right. Wow. Yeah.
So that's a biggie. And I
That's a big
know
feat,
I
yeah.
won't be around to see that.
Yeah.
But I want to work on that. I want to work on that for your kids.
Yes. Yeah. For all these other Asian Americans who are here, going to grow up here, and will be third, fourth, fifth generations, and them to feel like they have roots in this country too.
Yes, and some great history and some great innovations, technology, etc. So then the other thing I'm working on is the climate change and improving the environment.
Okay.
So April 17th, we have a screening of Beyond Zero.
Okay.
And so it's very exciting about a man 20 years ago who read a book about climate change and the environment. And he had a industrial carpet company. And he says, he's got to work on this. He got his employees involved, his customers and suppliers. It was a whole culture change to get to Beyond Zero. And if he can do it, I know we can all do it. We just need to have an example, a good example. And he's a great example of that.
Awesome. Yeah. So April 17th.
April 17th at Amity Bank. Yeah, Beyond Zero screening. I'm so excited because if we can get our sponsorships, we can give this documentary with curriculum to all the schools, all the universities, colleges, vocational schools, so that as people are developing new products, that they will think of end of life cycle.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
No, I love that, and I'd love to be more in touch with you on that.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd love to know more about that. To end with, I thought maybe if you have any advice for entrepreneurs starting out, any words that you would like to give them?
I do. Yeah. I went to a open conference, and one of my panelists was Shanaz Hemati. And Shanaz has a company called ZenBusiness.com. Prior, she was a co-founder of Home Away, which Experian bought and had turned it into VBRO now. She lives in Austin. You got to have her on the program.
Yes,
her business is about helping you get your EIN number, an attorney, a CPA, your articles of incorporation, your bylaws, and then taking it to the next level. Do you need funding? Where's best to get the kind of funding that you need? So she's really looking to help build businesses out there. So I highly recommend ZenBusiness.com.
I use Zen Business when I started my own company, and now I'm just happy to know that it's women-owned, minority-owned, and that's where my money is going to.
Right.
Yeah.
Wonderful. And support. We have to support other women. So
Absolutely.
I'm an Agility Bank stockholder and depositor. And so it's a woman-owned, managed, operated bank here in town.
Yeah.
So it's a great way to show that we're walking the talk.
Yeah. So anyway, you were talking about the advice for young entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're going to have to work hard.
Work hard. Yeah.
And do ZenBusiness.com.
Oh, yeah. Use Zen Business.
You've got to use ZenBusiness.com.
Yeah. That's a great time saver.
It's going to save you months, years.
Yeah. You don't need to hire an accountant to get started, at least. Yeah.
An attorney, what's legal, what's not, what you can do, can't do. Yeah. I had to go through it just by trial and error.
Okay. Yeah.
And I also had a CEO roundtable. There was 3 of us CEO women. We would meet once a quarter and talk about our employees, customers, suppliers. Maybe I knew there was a new opportunity for you to bid on your business.
Right.
Or maybe there was a lawsuit against me and we helped each other work through all of that. And
Yeah, awesome.
So I think that's the other thing, because it's lonely at the top.
Right. And you had these 2 questions at the end of our last episode that I noted down because our sound wasn't very good. But you said when you're in a meeting with people, you should always ask them these 2 questions. Do you remember what they were?
No, yes, I'm sure it's, is there anything that I haven't asked you that I need to know? And I can't remember what the last one was.
Is there anything you want to know that I didn't tell you?
Yes. It's true.
Is there anything that you want to know that I didn't tell you? So one is more like, should I have asked you something that I haven't asked? And so I like those questions. They're good ones.
Because at the end of the meeting, you may walk out of there and think, wow, that was a great meeting. I think I'm going to get a contract, right? Yeah. And the person on the other end is, they didn't talk about this or this, and this was right on top of my mind. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can clear out a lot of information in those two questions. Thank you for reminding me.
Yeah, no, I wanted to capture those because they were so good. Thank you so much, Donna, for coming back again. I'm so happy to have talked to you, learned from you, and getting to know you more.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Let's do it again.
Let's do it again. Yeah, third one.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Something from Nada podcast. Hey, you made it this far. Give us a like and follow. If you'd like to learn more about how you can be a guest, a sponsor, or want to learn about my book, Determined to Lead, head to my website, www.nadaahmed.com. That's www.nadahmed.com. Thank you.